Hi, this is Not Quite a Degree. My name is Tabea, and today I'm going to talk about something that I don't quite have a degree in, but I'm still gonna share my opinion on it. And today's topic are bachelor thesis. Is that even the plural of that? I don't know. Really, I'm literally in the midst of my bachelor thesis right now. It's just about 3 weeks left. That's 10. 3 weeks left until I'm finally done and I can finally hand in those, like, what feels like 200 pages. It's not. But yeah, it's been quite the ride. There have been ups, there have been downs while doing it, and I just felt like sharing a little bit of that with you because there's lots of things where I'm like, it would have been kind of cool if somebody would have told me that beforehand, you know, before I had another mental breakdown or before I would eat that entire, I was gonna say bar, but really cupboard of chocolate, because I was so frustrated. So yeah. It might help you. It might help you. If not, then good luck with your thesis anyway. So let's get into the things that I kind of wish I would not have had to go through in the past 3 months. The agonizing state of not being able to start. When I started my bachelor thesis, I was not starting right away. I feel like from the point where I was actually supposed to sit in the library and do research, I feel like I spent a good 2 weeks in bed, kind of throwing myself pity parties in a fetus position. Yeah, it definitely happened. I don't know what I was waiting for, maybe like a magic spark of inspiration hitting me, I don't know. I feel like I was just very, very overwhelmed. So what was my deal back then? First off, I realized I was just looking at the big picture, which is a thing. So my tip here is set up a time frame, anticipate that you're not gonna follow it, and make sure that you already plan for breaks before you start. Finding literature and structure for your thesis. Oh, Jemima, that was the least fun part for me in the beginning. As I said, yes, I was lacking motivation to just go to the library and start writing and do all of that jazz. But to be quite honest with you, yes, I mean, it's quite overwhelming and everything, but I was just struggling to kind of do my research and work through all of those essays and papers and whatnot. So, I kind of want to give some tips on how I dealt with that in the end, because really it can just be, you know, if you have a literature body that's basically like, oh, just 400 books and, you know, don't forget about those 800 papers, then, you know, it can be kind of frustrating, especially in the beginning. My first tip is to just kind of read and read again, and then read some more. I just kind of realized that yes, there will be days where, especially in the beginning, you spend an entire day reading up on a topic where you're gonna realize, well, it's either not in my field, not in my kind of word count that I have to kind of take care of. You just kind of lost a day reading because it's just not something you're gonna use. But among those days where you're gonna do a lot of reading, there will finally be that day where you find that one paper amongst those like thousands of papers, at least what it feels like, that you're reading, where you're gonna find, you know, just the right thing, just the right framework to work with, or just kind of the right research in general to put in your thesis, and to then go from there. Even if there's a lot to read, go do it! You will eventually find what you're looking for. I do believe in you. I did find what I was looking for too. So, second tip in that kind of area is, once you have found something that you think is like, okay, this might work, this is the right research, this is the right paper, go check the sources. It always helped me like a ton. Because usually in a paper there's going to be like, I don't know, 30, 60, 100 sources. And if you just kind of go through that list, read the titles, read the authors, you're going to be like, oh, okay, maybe this author is in there like 5 times, or this title sounds interesting. You know, that way you kind of go into that snowball system where from one article that you think is kind of fitting for whatever you're doing, you find like, I don't know, another like 4 or 5 articles that might help you too. So that's the way I always went about things, and that kind of worked pretty well. And then the last thing that I do in that whole literature research structure finding process is look for authors that are important for your field. And once you found those, you know, through that reading and through that looking for sources, usually you will find a webpage with all of their research listed, and then you can just go, okay, what is the last thing that they published, and then go down from that. So especially when somebody has, like, I don't know, written a very important paper in, say, 2001, you can just look that person up and see, okay, maybe in 2014 they've written like a reviewed paper on that subject, so you make sure that you're not kind of working with very old and outdated research. Kind of helped me, and sometimes it's just helpful because usually authors that are very important to one field will do like reviews of the field. So for example, I had an author who was publishing a lot of important things, like more towards like the 2000s, like 2001, 2002, and then in 2014 or 13, I don't quite remember, she actually published a paper that kind of reviewed the whole field, and she was talking about all the other important authors that followed her in the field, and it was just like, yeah, great, you know, I got all the important authors in one paper, so I don't have to look them up myself. That was pretty helpful too. The last thing on my list today is professors that are being quite, you know, sometimes helpful, sometimes not so helpful. Your professor is basically going to be, you know, your mentor while you write your thesis. You're probably going to talk to them a lot more than you did for the past semesters, at least that was my case. And you're also going to have a lot of questions for them, which they sometimes are going to answer to very quickly and in very great detail, and sometimes you basically get like, yeah, a sentence back. Communicating with my professor, I just kind of realized that there are some things that you should look out for to not annoy them and not to annoy you. So it happened to me before that I walked into somebody's office before, asked a question, and then realized that was not a very smart question to ask, because even a person who's extremely knowledgeable in that field probably doesn't know the answer off the top of their head. And you want to prevent that happening in your bachelor thesis, because it's not going to be helpful. They're just probably going to be annoyed with you if it happens more than once. So think before you ask. In your thesis, depending on what way of communication you use with your professor, you should probably try to think through your questions before you ask them. Think what is the right order to ask them. Think, do they need to know the question before we actually talk about it in person or on Skype or whatever you use, and just make it easy and kind of time efficient for them to spend time with you, because then it's also going to be more efficient for you as a person. The second thing with questions is sometimes you are not going to get an answer, and that is right and okay. I hated that at first because I was like, I ask you 5 questions and you answer to 1. Why though? I've come to realize that really sometimes it's not their job to answer all of your questions. It's just not. Sometimes you have to figure out a way to either go around it or go through it yourself, to kind of find an answer to that question yourself and figure it out, basically. Because, you know, they are there for you to guide you, but they're not there for you to do it for you. So kind of keep that in mind when being kind of frustrated with the answers that you're getting. It's not their job to do your job, basically. One last thing when writing emails: don't write them when you're on your period. I've done that. Didn't end well. But, you know, try not to send confused, angry, nervous, any kind of, like, not so good emotion email to your professor, because they don't have the time to deal with it. And keep it short. That's also a thing. Like, don't send them like an essay asking 2 questions. Nobody's really gonna read that, if we're being honest. And lastly, remembering the fact that your thesis is not gonna matter at all once you've handed it in. I know, thesis, for me it's the same right now. It's just really taking up the major part of my time. Like, I think about it day and night, basically, and I'm always either anxious or very excited about it, or I'm just like having a lazy day and I'm just kind of telling myself, you should work, when I'm in bed like, I don't want to. Yeah. There's a lot of emotions involved when it comes to my thesis, at least for me personally. I know there's people who are very chill about it, but I am not! It's a bachelor thesis in the end, you know, it is part of your bachelor studies or your undergrad degree. I don't really know what you call it. I have lived in the US for a while and I have no idea how the college system works, to be honest. What I'm trying to say here really is, do your best, give it your best every day, make sure you hand it on time, make sure you really hand in something that you're proud of, but also don't completely lose your mind over it. Like, don't stress about it so much to the point where you basically get a burnout every week because you're like, I can't do it, I'm hyperventilating or something. In a couple years' time, it's not very realistic that it's gonna play a big role in your life anymore, so keep that in mind, I guess. There will be a silver lining eventually. That's the day that you're gonna hand in, and it's gonna approach ever so fast, but once it's there, you're gonna be happy and you're gonna be living your best life, basically. I hope. Because I haven't handed in yet. But yeah, I'm hoping. Thank you so much for watching. It was really fun talking about it, writing about it, whatever. I hope you're doing well with your thesis paper, whatever you're writing right now, or maybe you're just kind of picking up on some motivation in this video. And I'd love to hear from you, so kind of hit me up on my Twitter or in the comments. What are you writing about right now? Do you need, like, motivation, help? I don't know, I'd love to talk to you, so yeah, it was really nice talking to you, and until next time, I'll see you. Okay, one last thing that we cannot forget about. Save your files! Please! It's just gonna save you so much struggle.